Tom, I've heard St. Louis described as having its own unique musical style. Could you define that a little
Well,
bit?
I I don't know that I could, but from my experience in playing with musicians from other cities and playing in other cities and stuff, and all you musicians and friends of mine, I'm not trying to be negative, but there's a certain like kinetic or nervous energy in the St. Louis sound. The smoothness of the Chicago sound, the laid-back Memphis sound, is not. St. Louis doesn't have that. Everything seems very rushed and nervous to me, and it has a lot of energy in it. Okay, so it's forceful, energetic, and a lot of it is, well, nowadays a lot of it is guitar driven as opposed to horns or harmonica or piano, and that's kind of changing a little bit. I've been bumping into some really good piano players out there, and I love it, you know. And there's some people out there doing more of the acoustic folk blues that I'm very pleased to see and hear from people, you know. And while I say that, and of course the question is the St. Louis sound.
I've heard Jeremy Siegel Moss once described it as the space between the notes.
Well, I would say there's not enough space between the notes. It seems like there's a lot of notes being played. But let me say this about the St. Louis sound. I think it changes. If you were to go back and say like Bill Greensmith did and go do a real deep dive on St. Louis music from 1960 to 1970, you would find that it did have a certain sound, especially with the vocalists and things like that. But from 70 to 80 would be a totally different sound than what it sounded like between 60 and 70. So I'm trying to explain that, you know, it's an evolving thing, but and it will continue to evolve. The real, if I'm using the term correctly, progenitor of the St. Louis sound would have been people like Henry Townsend, Silver Cloud, and of course Ike Turner, and all the people that came out from that. Willie Kizart, who was on Rockin' 88s on guitar, lived in St. Louis and played gigs. Johnnie Johnson, of course, my best friend, he would tell me, like, oh yeah, Willie, he plays nothing but the blues, and they have gigs together. And there was that era where the blues and soul music, or rhythm and blues, kind of overlapped with people like Screamin' Joe Neal, many others too. So, and again, I can't really discuss it without getting into the race issue, and it's all good. Don't mean that in a negative connotation, but the black community really, I feel from my exposure to it and being able to be on the inside with people like Johnny and Benny and Oliver, saw that they have like their own little culture. All the musicians knew each other, and knew how they played and what they could play, and so they knew how to use each other to their best use. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
Yeah, you want to
Make it tight.
Do a
Right.
jazz gig, hire this guy.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do a real blues gig, well, don't get this guy, get this guy. You know, so
Yeah.
that all existed within their community. You know, like up on Natural Bridge, Gino's Lounge and stuff. You know, and then of course there's the East Side, which you know is legendary for all the Vets Club and all the places that people would go for music and dancing, and two, music back then was a little bit different in that it was always related to dancing. So, you know, doing a folk blues set would be kind of hard in a club. You know, that would almost have to fall into a different category of entertainment. But you know, Silver Cloud had a great band with Fred Grant on guitar, and you know, there was just so much going on in the late 50s and early 60s that spawned what came later. But interestingly, what happened in the end of the 60s was that the hippies embraced the blues. So you had Prince. I went to Prince Knight's palace in Belleville and heard Albert King right after he recorded that live at the Fillmore album. Had the same band, did the same thing, and it just split my mind in half. I mean, I never heard anything like it. I was in musical ecstasy, and all the way home, it was just amazing. Albert King was a force of nature, and the Castaway Club. Oh, that was another one where it was the Castaway Club, not the Rainy Days Club, but the Castaway Club. I also saw Albert King there, but I also saw Muddy Waters there.
I saw that you also saw like Otis Spann back in the day, and Mississippi Fred McDowell.
Oh yeah, Otis Spann was with Muddy Waters band, and they were. It was right after he had recorded Electric Mud.
Oh wow!
And so he had that band with him. I don't think James Cotton was with him at that point. I don't remember him having a harmonica player that night. But yes, and then Leroy Pearson could probably tell you about this. It may have been he and some of his friends who promoted it, but it was a blues festival at the Fox Theater. And it was Mississippi Fred McDowell. He had just released an album called I Don't Play No Rock and Roll. And Johnny Shines, who was incredible, and Big Mama Thornton, and I believe it was Sammy Longbaum, and Willie Big Eye Smith was on drums. I think that was the first time I ever saw him. And so me and my buddy went to the bathroom during an intermission or when they're switching out, and we come out of the bathroom in the foyer, and who's there at the drinking fountain but Johnny Shines. And you know, we're 17 years old, we just couldn't walk by him without saying something to him, you know.
Right.
And you know, oh, Mr. Shines, we love what you did, man. He did this wonderful show where he demonstrated the different styles of you know, acoustic blues, and he mentioned that Robert Johnson and I used to be down on Gratiot and Gravel or Broadway, and he'd be on one corner and I'd be on the other, and we'd play, and he would play this kind of, and then he would play a Robert Johnson lick, and he was so wonderful and nice to us. You know, these two little high school white kids, you know, but he was very nice and, you know, talked with us. And we were just, you know, walking on a cloud. Well, fast forward 10 years, maybe more. I'm at playing at a festival with Johnnie Johnson, and who's on before us? Johnny Shines. And I got to shake his hand and say, Mr. Shines, you know, you made such an impression on me, and now I'm so glad that I'm able to shake your hand and play music. You know, you were a big inspiration. So that was kind of a fun thing that happened. But yeah, and I also saw at the Fox Theater during that same year the Canned Heat with
How are you
Hooker.
guys?
Doing good.
Good. I like your hat.
Thank you. Saw that Hooker and Heat, where it was a Canned Heat with John Lee Hooker, and wow, that was a very inspiring thing. And also at the WashU Quadrangle, I got to sit right in front, and the security looked like they were going to throw me, you know, make me move, but I was so enthralled watching Furry Lewis play slide guitar that they like, okay, let the kid sit there, you know. So yeah, these things, for my mind, I was trying to put it all together. Well, how can Albert King be the blues, but Furry Lewis be the blues too? You know, because I'm thinking about guitars and guitar licks, and you know, I hadn't reached the bigger picture of it all, you know. But those were my influences and things that happened that transformed my mind into mush. But